What's up, Ellison Oswald? I'm your fearful leader, Q, and today we're looking at some pretty disturbing sleep paralysis experiences, and I just want to put a warning out there. If you suffer from sleep paralysis, might not be the best idea to watch this video because it could inspire some sort of ideas of new things to hallucinate while you're paralyzed in your bed. So, just that warning out of the way, let's get into it. Sneaky Pie Brown shares their experience. I actually have it fairly often, so much now that I realize when it's occurring. These days I just close my eyes and won't open them no matter what I feel or hear. Doing this though doesn't force me to wake up, and I still have to wait for it to end. I still feel and hear everything. Sometimes I feel like I'm being dragged somewhere, or just constantly feel something is touching me along with muffled voices. Before I learned to cope with it, I've seen quite a few awful things. Horror films don't really do anything for me anymore because I've seen the most terrifying things I already could. Here's a few things I remember off the top of my head. A little girl in the corner of the room staring at me. Then, without notice, she shrieks and runs up and starts choking me. A large dark figure, kind of like a human silhouette, emerging from the foot of my bed and staring down at me. Something banging and scraping on my bedroom door. I keep it locked at night because I've had ones where it opens it by itself. Edit, no, the door isn't open when I wake up, it only happens in the dream. My bedroom door opening by itself, followed by dark figures coming into my room. The earliest one I can remember is my mother in the room, and she's sitting on my bed, her face morphs into a demon-like thing. Many others. The worst is when you try to fight or call for help. Your voice doesn't work and your body will not respond. You just feel helpless. I need to stop trying to remember these things. I'm getting chills. This story makes me feel really fortunate because I can relate to the end of it, because I've experienced sleep paralysis in the past, mostly when I was laying on my stomach. It would feel like my shoulders were completely locked up and I could not move my arms, and when I would try to shout, nothing would happen. But because I was facing downward, I wasn't really looking around the room at all because I just physically couldn't move my neck or anything. So I never saw anything, and I'm very glad I didn't, because I feel like your brain just kind of runs away with what is the scariest thing that could happen to me when I'm in this extremely vulnerable, paralyzed state. And so once your brain starts going on that, it doesn't seem to end. Curly Bacon explains what they've seen. I've had cycles of sleep paralysis for as long as I can remember, and I regularly see two different demons. The hallucinations are visual, auditory, and you can physically feel them at times. They've become more vivid as I've gotten older. One is a tall, dark, hooded figure that always stood at the bottom of my bed. My scariest experience with him was when I woke up one night with sleep paralysis, and the big, spooky, hooded bastard was standing right next to me. His hood was covering his face, but I knew he was watching me, and I knew he was evil. The second one I see is a smallish gremlin-type creature that's got pointy features and is a browny green color. Very similar to the one in the painting, but I'd seen him before I'd seen the painting, or even knew what sleep paralysis was. He normally appears when I'm on my back and restricts my breathing and speaks in a weird whispery language. I woke up once and he was crouching on the corner of the ceiling. When I looked at him, he turned his head and looked right at me and smiled. I woke up on my side once and I could hear him behind me, speaking his freaky language, and then I felt his snake-like tongue going in my ear and making a slithery noise. I can't tell how glad I am when I found out there was a scientific explanation for it and that I wasn't actually being haunted. I can't explain how many people with sleep paralysis see similar demons and how we all just know that the things we are seeing are evil, but it's something I choose not to think about too much for the sake of ever being able to sleep again. TLDR, brains are spooky assholes. The thing that freaks me out the most about this one is the ending section where they describe the genuine sense of evil they feel when they see the demons, and the fact that other people have that same feeling, because it sort of introduces this idea that, although there's a scientific explanation, there's also just this deeper fear based in some sort of genuine evil out there in the world, and that just it creeps me out, even though the scientific explanation can explain that your brain's trying to come up with just the scariest thing you can possibly imagine, which genuine evil would definitely be one of those things. Okay, I'm actually kind of freaked out. So this thread leads to easily the most terrifying account of sleep paralysis I have ever heard, but we need these first two ones for context, and they're kind of creepy on their own, but you'll see. User Sahenley says, I've only experienced it 3 times, but my first time was the worst. I've never had any visual encounters, but when it happened the first time, I was laying on my side and started to feel that pressure on my chest. When I realized I was paralyzed and started panicking, something whispered in my ear, "Just coming in to say goodnight." That's when I felt like something was pushing me towards the edge of my bed. Terrifying shit. The reality of things replies, this is word for word what I experience 2 to 3 times a month. Except it's obviously feminine voice telling me, go back to sleep, or good night, baby. And I can see her face and body. She's draped in black clothing that seems wet. Skeleton hands, but a very soft, feminine young face. Eyes like black holes. She's always sitting on my chest. I like to refer to her as bitch. When she leaves me alone, I go flying through infinity. And then the doctor explains comes through with some legitimate nightmare fuel. Your flying through infinity line provokes me to respond because it's just so similar to an experience I had it's uncanny. Without going into too much detail on my history of sleep paralysis, I've had a lot of it, all my life. My response was always rage. Uncontrollable outright rage like I've never felt while awake. It's a response of pure instinct, and I wish I could change it. I wish I could thank the thing that is causing it. That might sound weird, but here's why. I'm not a superstitious person. I've always believed, even since I was a child, that my sleep disorders, including paralysis and lucid dreams, were neurological in nature. Then one night something different happened. It had never happened before and has never happened again. I've had short out-of-body experiences before, mostly just limb pop-out or sitting up and leaving my body laying down. It's hard to explain. The following occurred after many of these experiences, so I was not afraid or shocked by them at this point. It's par for the course. One night, as I was trying to fall asleep, my arm fell through the bed. Obviously, my physical arm was still laying on the bed. Usually when this happens, I just pick my arm up. But this time I got curious. How long would it last? So I started waving my arm around, and my shoulder slipped through. This was new and exciting. I moved my fingers around, swung my arm around some more, and got bold. I consciously attempted to push my head through the bed. It worked. But what I saw was nothing. I don't mean I couldn't see, but it was as if something was in fact nothing in this place. I must sound totally bonkers right now. I could feel, though, that there was something, farther away. My fear being exactly 0 at this point and my curiosity impossible to control, I threw caution to the wind and tried to reach out as far as I could for whatever it was I could feel out there. Big mistake. My leg slipped. The rest of my torso also slipped. My other arm slipped and my hips started to fall in. At the very last moment when my left leg was all that was attached and it was about to go, I realized somehow that what I was reaching for was not a thing I wanted to interact with. There was fear, of an intensity equal to my rage during sleep paralysis. Fear like I've never experienced. At this point I tried to pull back, but there was nothing I could do. I tried to swing my leg back up to smash into my body, but it was stretched down, like being pulled into a void. My other knee slipped, nothing but my foot, ankle down, and part of my left hip holding me up at that point. I'm pretty sure I was about to be gone, whatever that means. Just at that last second, something reached in, grabbed my shoulder, and yanked me back up, like it was nothing. I can't really explain this properly either. The hand felt solid, powerful, like I was in its natural habitat. It pulled me back up with all the difficulty of lifting a cotton ball. I slammed back into my body with a feeling of finality, as if to say, no fucking way I'm letting you fall into that. Directly and immediately into a state of sleep paralysis. This is the one time I just laid there. No fear, no rage, no attempt to move. My instinct said whatever was pinning me down had just saved my ass from something I probably never want to understand. I've continued to have regular sleep-related issues since that day, and to my shame, I've continued to react as I always do. I rarely have any reasoning abilities during my episodes, just purely running off instinct. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that if what I was falling into was your infinity, you want nothing to do with what's on the other side of it. And your bitch might just be doing what he or she is doing to save you from it. Think about it. Just for a moment, I'll take a superstitious lane. What would it feel like to have your soul locked into your body so that it couldn't be pulled out? Probably a lot like Paralysis. Still wish I could thank it. This one gave me such a deep sense of like dread and relief at the same time. I don't know, it's a weird feeling that I'm getting from this one. Just the idea that you should feel fortunate that your sleep paralysis is locking you in, because what it's locking you into is protecting you from like falling through into this nothingness reality where everything's just empty space. Like, yeah, maybe if he had actually fallen through the bed fully, he would have just, you know, woken up afterwards and everything would have been cool. Or he could have just experienced a million years of falling within what like in reality was just like a couple minutes in his bed, because that's what his brain's perception of it was. I don't know, it's getting me on all these weird fucking thought directions. In summary, the unconscious or semi-conscious mind is extremely powerful and very troublesome to think about. If you want some more creepy and really bad attempts at being creepy, I have a new video reviewing 20 different 15-second horror movies. I also have the most recent Creepypasta's Bad video and channel members on the left. I hope everybody's doing super well, skating on to the best of your abilities and drinking a lot of water. I'll see you super soon. Sleep tight.